Welcome everyone, and I hope you're having a good day. Today we have got some very important news. Elden Ring has just dropped minimum PC spec requirements for the upcoming game. So let's get straight into it. For the processor, you need to be running a Ryzen 3300X and an i5-8400. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Ryzen 3 3300X is a 4-core 8-thread processor. It is very comparable to previous gen i7s, specifically the 7700K, and the i5-8400 is a 6-core 6-thread processor. It does not have hyper-threading. It is a pure 6-core, no additional threads. This is good news. We do not have a ridiculously CPU demanding game as it would appear to be from the minimum system requirements. However, you have to understand they are saying a Ryzen 3 3300X, so it does need that modern day IPC. However, do believe you will be fine with something like a i7 4770, i7 3770, and even probably the i7 2600K. I think the people who have to worry about this game, if you're running a CPU, would be a much older CPU, maybe like a i5 2500K. That's a pure 4-core 4-thread, so that may have problems because it seems that they are targeting 6 to 8 threads in the minimum requirements. The memory is at 12 gigabytes, which is great. They didn't say 16 gigabyte minimum, so most gamers are running 16 gigabytes. And for the graphic card, and as graphic card shortages and woes continue for a very long time now, we have the GTX 1060 3 gigabyte and the AMD RX 580 4 gigabyte as the minimum requirement. This is really good. Now there are some other things that I really don't like. This minimum requirement is very bare bones. It's really terrible because they don't tell you the FPS, they don't tell you the resolution, they don't tell you the settings. It's a very classic. We just put some minimums requirements there and good luck. I really don't like that. Now, storage is 60 gigabytes. That's great because as you know, game storage has been getting out of hand for quite some time. A lot of games now are basically needing 100 gigabytes to 150 gigabytes. Fallout 4 from way back in the day, the Game of the Year edition with the HD texture pack, that needs like 100 gigabytes. And no joke, it needs that. And given that 60 gigabytes for a new modern AAA game from Software, that's really good. Now let's just look at the Steam hardware survey here. Now I know the Steam hardware survey does not represent every PC gamer, but it's just a nice little aggregate to work around for most gamers to maybe understand if they're in a position to run it. So if you're running a 4-core 8-thread CPU, a previous gen i7, you should be fine. I would also assume everybody on the Ryzen 5, 1500, 1600, 2600, the 2700X, 3600, all of those CPUs would be fine because they are targeting the 3300X, so more cores, more CPUs, you should be good. Now, as you could see, they said that they want 12 gigabytes of memory. Most gamers have 16. Most of you are running 1080p, so I assume targeting 1080p 30 FPS would be great. And given that the minimum requirement is the GTX 1060 3 gigabyte and most people seem to be running the GTX 1066 gigabyte, you should be fine. The only people I would worry about is maybe the 1050 Ti, but if you lock in your FPS to 30 FPS, you hopefully will be able to run the game at good quality settings at 1080p and they should be fine. Now, one of the things that some people may be worried about is would their VRAM size be enough? I believe for 1080p you should be fine with the 3 and 4 gigabytes because 1080p is still holding out pretty well with the 1650 Super that I use for my testing. It holds up pretty well at 1080p. It really doesn't do well beyond 1080p. And now there are just some things to note because maybe people may be curious about this. The game is not targeting high frame rates. From Software usually doesn't target high frame rates. In Sekiro, the game was locked to 60 FPS, And Elden Ring is pretty much locked to 60 FPS as far as I know, and PC is locked to 60 FPS. Now, there is no indication that AMD FSR and NVIDIA DLS will be available. And that's kind of a bummer for a lot of people because DLSS and FSR has been a big deal. You know, it helps a lot of people get the frame rates. It does compromise some of your visibility in especially FSR if you go down to the lower quality settings, but DLSS FSR both work well to help boost frame rates. There's no confirmation of that for this game. Ray tracing, we don't know anything about it, and yeah. However, the minimum requirements are out. I do hope you all meet it. The i5 8400 is not a very powerful CPU. You know, you could easily get away, I believe, with a 1700. That's a 8 core, 8 thread. So that should be able to do fine in it. Even though the IPC is a bit weak and the core-to-core latency is a bit high. So those TPUs should still be fine to run this game. And yeah, tell me what you think. Tell me your specs. Do you think you could run it? I hope you all have a nice day. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below. And have a nice day, everyone.